Alright, today we are going to look at arguments and determine, one, we've already determined if something's inductive versus deductive. But we're going to talk about the differences between a strong argument and a weak argument. For example, class started 15 minutes ago. Saying you have to use the restroom at this point would be a weak argument, right? Saying you need to use the restroom maybe an hour from now would be a little bit stronger argument. Either way, class is only 90 minutes. One would conclude that probably, unless you have a nurse's note, that everyone could wait until passing period. So inductive, we talked yesterday. That's when you're going from specific to general. And the definition here, it's an argument in which the truth of the premises is supposed to prove that the conclusion is probably true. And we say an inductive argument is strong if it really does prove that the conclusion is true. And we say an argument is weak if it does not prove that the conclusion is probably true. So strong, it probably does make it true. Weak, it probably does not. So if you read anything that's completely false, then it's probably weak. And these you will learn later, but we are not going to speak of them. But here's how you determine whether an argument is strong or weak. You assume all the premises are true. Those are like the first couple statements before the conclusion. Okay? So you just assume that those are true, even if one is clearly false. And then using the information in the premises, what is the probability that the conclusion is true? If you think it's over a 50% likelihood, then you would say strong. If it's 50% or less, you would say weak. So here's an example. And again, the premise would be most recording artists have talent. You assume that's true. That's a premise. Britney Spears is a recording artist. You have to assume that that's true to determine weak or strong. Now, here is the conclusion. So we have most recording artists have talent. Britney Spears is a recording artist. And so my conclusion is, therefore, Britney probably has talent. Would you say that's a strong or weak argument? And these are inductive. We're going specific, and a general, right? Would you say this is strong or weak? Assume this is true. Assume this is true. Do you think this is an over a 50% likelihood or under 50%? So quiet. What do you think, Christina? Strong or weak? Strong. Why do you think it's strong? Yeah, it's probably true, right? If both of these are assumed to be true, the premises, there's over a 50% likelihood that this is also true based off the two premises. I agree with you. Britney Spears, so ignore everything else. Now we're on to the next one. Britney Spears is a recording artist. Britney has blonde hair. Those are true, even if she's dyed her hair. Okay? We're not trying to say what color her hair is. We're not trying to say what she really does. Okay, but she just lip syncs everything. But assuming those are true, therefore, my conclusion is most recording artists have blonde hair. Is that a strong argument? Or is that a weak inductive argument? Weak? Why do you think it's weak? Huh? Not all artists have blonde hair. And that is called a counterexample. Can you name a lot of artists without blonde hair? Recording artists. Can you? Yeah, what do you think? Who? Katy Perry? Yeah, she definitely does not have blonde hair. It's black, isn't it? Yeah. Who's that? She's not blonde hair? But I bet she could go on forever. There are a lot of counterexamples. Just because you're a recording artist and this specific person has blonde hair, it would be a weak argument to just assume that all recording, or they even said most, that most recording artists have blonde hair. That's a weak argument. That's less than 50%. So, strong and weak. So far, we are just trying to determine the difference between strong and weak. Assume these are true. The premises. Most boys like to play sports. Keyword is most. And I would even agree with that. Most boys do. Britney Spears is a boy. Is that true? No, but we're going to assume that Britney Spears is a boy. And we're going to assume that most boys like to play sports. So using those two premises, the conclusion is, therefore, Britney probably likes to play sports. Is that strong or weak? Strong? I hear strong, I hear weak. Well, even though it's false, we're going to assume that this is true. If Britney Spears is a boy, and we're going to assume that most boys like to play sports, then I would say it is strong. Even though it's not true. It's a strong argument. Okay? Inductive. If both of these are assumed to be true, how likelihood is that to be true? It's a strong. Does that make sense? So we're not looking to see if they're true or false at this point. We're just saying, is it a strong argument based off the premises, or is it a weak argument based off the premises? Now, deductive is more factual based. You're going general to specific. And it's an argument in which the truth of the premises means that this must be true. So if the premises are true, if the general statement is true, then all the specifics also. If I say all students love math, and that's a true statement, and then I go specific and I say Christina loves math, therefore, then that would be true, right? However, it's not true. My premise of all students love math is not true. Therefore, doing a deductive argument could also be a false statement. If I say every student in this class is currently female, and then I say she's female, that would be deductive, and that would be a true statement. That would be a strong argument. So, assume that all the premises are true, even if one is clearly false. And then use only the information in the premise and ask yourself, does the conclusion have to be true? And it's either valid or invalid. And we're going to spend more time talking about weak versus strong, but valid and invalid are also there. If Barack Obama is President of the USA, then Michelle Obama is First Lady. Barack is President of the USA. So we're going to assume both of those are true. Barack Obama is President. Michelle Obama is his wife, First Lady. Barack is President of the USA. Therefore, Michelle is First Lady. Is that a strong or weak argument? Strong. Okay, that is a valid argument. It's strong. Abraham Lincoln died of cancer. If Abraham Lincoln died of cancer, then Lincoln is dead today. Okay? Lincoln is dead today. Therefore, Abraham Lincoln died of cancer. Is that strong or weak? That one's going to be a little confusing. I'm not going to do it on the test. But basically, if A then B, A, therefore B, just because he's dead today does not mean he died of cancer. So go into our notes. Capture some of the things we just talked about. So here, and mostly we're going to talk about weak versus strong inductive arguments, because deductive arguments are usually pretty strong because it's going from general to specific unless it's an invalid statement. So how can I define weak? What did I say weak means? Anyone remember what weak means? Say it again. Stinky facts? Is that what you said? Stating facts. Yeah, and I heard Christina, you said weak means what? Yeah, 50% or less likelihood of it being true, right? And then even more formally, looking at the slide I just gave you, it just essentially, it really does not does not prove the conclusion is true. We say it is, it says 50%. I'm not going to give you anything that's exactly 50%. So less than 50% chance. Amount. And then a strong argument color today, huh? What is that? Huh. I wonder why I turned blue today. It's actually easier to see with the light on today. But strong, it really proved the conclusion to be true. This would be greater than 50%. And then if you could find an example, such as a recording artist that is not blonde, such as Katy Perry, and you said a few others, that's what we call a counter example. Kind of like counterfeit money is money that's not real. It would be examples that prove that the statement is not real. So it's an example that proves, and we're going to use the word conjecture, because that's one of our vocab words. And it's an example that proves the conjecture false. Such as Katy Perry. Which ironically, Katy Perry woke me up this morning. She was on my Spotify, and I have it set on my alarm to go off and singing a song this morning. Okay. As a disclaimer, again, I did not make these examples. The examples are decent examples. So let's go through the premises. Santa, and again, Santa is white and fat. I am not saying that Santa's white. I'm not saying that Santa's fat. Okay? So please don't say Mr. Parks. He said Santa's white, and I said no. Okay? I'm not saying that. Remember, premises don't always have to be true, but you assume them to be true to determine if they're strong or weak. Okay? So Santa is white and fat. Mr. Parker is also fat and white. So Santa's fat and white, Mr. Parker's fat and white, and I say, Mr. Parker is Santa Claus. Is that more than 50% likelihood or less than 50%? And the key here is, can you think of a lot of examples? Can you think of examples where just because two entities are both fat and white, that they are not the same person? Can you think of any other? Let's not use any other teacher name. But can we think of anyone who possibly is fat and white? Any other people? Or is Mr. Parker the only one in the world? I feel horrible for saying that, but it's in the worksheet. Okay? I'm not an insulting type of person, but I feel like I just did. Are there other people? Can you think of who? Donald Trump? Yeah, one could argue. Any other counterexamples? Who? Who? Donald Trump? Okay. If you have trouble thinking of people that are fat and white, then it's probably a strong argument. I can think of a lot. Last year we said Jonah Hill. You know who that is? Think of actors or anyone who is both white and fat. So we could prove that just because you're white and fat, you are not Santa Claus. I try to be nicer to myself. I'm definitely not Santa. And one could argue maybe I'm one of the fat and white people. I don't know. Anyone else? Who? Who's that? How do you say their name? Fat Amy. Well, Amy, it doesn't say gender, so okay. Fat Amy would work, right? Assuming she's white. I assume she's fat. That's in her name. But, okay, anyway, I don't really like this example. So I would say this is a weak argument. There are quite a few counterexamples. I would say less than 50% chance of it being true. And I put Jonah Hill on here last year. Seems more appropriate. Even though I don't like insulting presidents, I will use your example. Next, Spider-Man can climb walls. Is that true? Can you climb walls, Spider-Man?